Welcome to the first edition of Deer Drive Mic'd Up. For our families, deer drives take on a whole new meaning. For us, it means loading up in the pickup with binoculars and hitting the country roads to see what deer we see. Darron and I took advantage of a cool Kansas morning the day before the archery opener to do some road scouting and to dispense a superfluity of hunting babble. Enjoy!
I need the country. I need the country.
Right. He's down.
Season starts tomorrow, but neither of us will be out.
I should probably buy a tag.
Yeah, I need to too.
Yeah, and mornings like this I get pretty anxious.
And tomorrow, well, probably not tomorrow, but Wednesday. By Wednesday, it's supposed to get hot again, so
Right.
that will be less exciting.
Yeah, if we had them could pattern pretty well on late summer food and stuff, it'd be worth it. But really this time of year, I mean, you're, like you just said, your activity is going to be an hour in the morning, an hour at night. And at least for me, that, unless I take some extra days off or something, that's hard to get up and do that from a distance.
Yeah, I would go out on a limb and say that if season would have started today or yesterday, we could go out today with like today's conditions, and this would have been about the best we've seen for a summer or like an opening.
Right, usually it's pretty hot and mild for a long time, but this little kick in the pants here. Deercast says it's great in the morning, great in the PM.
I know.
Should have been out there. Best time is right now, and
do you follow that or compare our pictures to Deercast predictions?
not religiously. I suppose it's probably data bias, but if I see a whole bunch of activity on the cameras or something, I'll sometimes go in and check Deercast.
Right, just to confirm.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. They're up and moving. But what I don't do is the other way, right? Is look at Deercast and say, oh, it's great, and then go back and actually sort through the pictures and see if it's significantly different than any other day.
Yeah.
So
last season, well, it was that week we started hunting. That Friday, I subscribed to Deercast just to see what it was going to be like. And I also have Spartan Forge. I don't think I have the full subscription on there, but what I seem to find out from Deercast, not that it's not a great app, but if you have any experience at all hunting and watching deer, you're going to be able to already predict those good and great days. But I thought what was really cool was on the days that we were sitting out there and might have been lesser than good days, their hour by hour prediction was really close to movement within, I would say, plus or minus 30 minutes.
Yeah.
There'd be days I'd be on the stand and thinking about getting down, and I'd wait, and you would see some movement. But
yeah, and there's nothing magic about Deercast or any of those other apps, but the really nice thing is it assembles all the info that you really want to see all in one spot. So otherwise I have, I'm looking at 2 or 3 different weather apps trying to forecast out the next couple of days.
Yeah.
And so Deercast puts that all in one spot, which is really neat. And maybe I'm just not finding it, but one thing that I don't see in Deercast is a current radar.
Yeah, admittedly, I haven't played around with it too much either. I usually just go to the day and hourly predictions where they have the little bar graph thing.
Yeah, where you can see the Well, and yeah, right. You're looking at the temperature and pressure, which that's the indicators, right, of months. But one thing that and the wind direction thing is pretty neat. Of course, that's at the lowest, or the local weather station.
Yeah.
Which for us, I'd have to actually look to see how far away that is. So, it may mean absolutely nothing to your stand location, depending on the geography. But a lot of times, when I'm in a stand, I like to, on these kind of days, pull up the actual radar, because sometimes it's, we got rain coming in 30 minutes kind of thing, and then that helps me prepare what I need to be doing.
It'd be super cool. Of course, I understand why it can't happen, because the forecast can't go out much further than 14 days or something to be very accurate. But to take vacation days on the good, great days, if they could get it out that far. But
well, and I think that's kind of where we, ideally would all want to be, right? And so that's kind of where our strategy of scheduling a week is hit and miss on the weather days. Statistically, we know, hey, there's a lot of deer killed in this time period, and you just got to hope that somewhere in those 7 days you snag one or two you get a good front coming through. But ideally, you look at the forecast and you just leave it alone the 4 days, and then you hit it hard on the good ones.
And I think that's how we use it, or would use it, rather than the big picture, dial it in. And like I said, even down to the hours, like we know a morning is just not going to be good activity. Of course, during the rut, you never know.
Right.
And that's when we're hitting I would call ours as a rut farm.
Right.
Because we don't have the crops to hunt over summer and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think, so if I was in the situation, where I could get out pretty much any day, September through mid or late October, I would be watching the deer cast, or those kinds of things pretty heavily, and just not bother on the days where you don't have the temperature and pressures that you want, but then really hit it good on those other days. Of course, when the bucks start searching, right, they don't really seem to care too much. And so if we're hitting it during the rut, you just got to be there, because they can wander through it anytime. Holy cow, it is pretty.
Oh wow, we gotta get some pictures here.
Pull up a little bit.
The sun is beautiful this morning. It's like 7:15 in the morning. I'm gonna pull over here.
Yeah, and it's not frosty, but it's 44 degrees, so everything is just covered in dew. The fog on the river is
exceptional. The fog in the pickup was pretty thick this morning too.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So the sun is just coming above the horizon, nice and bright, and
I'll let you take pictures if you wouldn't mind posting them and tagging me in them.
Yeah, we'll stick some
just
up
for
there.
Fun.
It's the kind of morning, but boy, you'd love to be in the tree stand, if nothing else, just to watch the world come alive. I should have, I knew this kind of weather was happening this morning. I should have been extra aware and gotten up early and done some time-lapse videos or something. But,
well,
yeah, DeerCast says it's excellent picture taking morning. It's kind of morning where you take pictures with your phone. It's not going to do it justice, but you got to do it anyway, because what else are you going to do?
It's really pretty because those trees by the river got destroyed this summer, so you can see clear across the river valley.
Yeah, it's strange that our entire lives we're kind of used to a landscape that changed pretty dramatically in the last couple of years. Actually opened up visibility quite a bit more. Be pretty wet walking into a tree stand on a morning like this, but boy, it's pretty. Good thing we got the wind farm and the gypsum mine right in all our pictures.
Yep. And it's pretty easy to see why fall is our favorite season.
Yeah, you gotta have all the seasons, but boy, the mornings like this in the fall and the spring where it's crisp and got colors. And
There's one right there. Right below the sun right now. I think it's just a doe.
that'll make it easy to see.
Yeah.
Close or back by the woods?
Right by the woods. Right at the edge of the trees.
Oh yeah, got it. Yeah, just big old doe.
And there's another doe to the right of her, but looks about the same.
Oh, I was looking at the right one anyhow.
Yeah. Well, then there's
Got good coverage.
one to the left.
Yep. I'm the eternal optimist, I guess, so that mornings like this just get me really amped up, like, oh, fall is here, and now I'm going to be really anxious about everything, knowing that in 7 days it's going to be 90 degrees again.
But the cool mornings help. This last week or so, it's been cool in the mornings.
Yeah,
Just enough.
And you got to have these kind of days to get things changing, right? So,
Yeah.
nice thing is also that it's very wet out this morning. It has been dry, and we need
Yeah, we finally got 7/10 of rain, so that'll help our food grow.
Yeah, so yesterday we had planned to spend most of the day kind of making our final tree stand and camera and whatever adjustments. Usually middle of September or sometime around in here we try to get things set up best we can for November, so we're not mucking around in there too much. Well, with the storms this summer, lots of trees down and stuff is just going to be different, but it dumped rain on us pretty good yesterday, and so a little wet and soggy for most of it, so we weren't quite as productive as we wanted to be, but you know, do what you can.
Things are in pretty good shape, though.
Yeah, it will be. So it really bummed me out seeing all the particularly really big old trees get knocked out this summer, and I don't know, it didn't count or anything, it's just too depressing for me, but it does change the Orange Army is out standing in the soybeans here getting all wet.
We after doves, or what are we doing out there?
Yes. I don't know. We got a nice view though. Anyway. But it will be interesting to see what it does with the deer, because I mean, we have, to be honest, way too many trees on the place anyhow.
Yeah.
So opening some of that up is going to be good. We did lose some good trees, but a lot of them were stuff that was on its way out anyhow, right? So
I noticed a few of those spots. There are some of those pignut hickory,
yeah,
young ones coming up through there, and actually that's going to help them a ton. Otherwise, they'd
right.
develop this kind of spindly trees. So.
Yeah, so
Let those fill out. Oh, here's some doves. Go by those guys over there. Here they come.
yeah. Two of them.
Get ready.
Actually, I saw a lot of doves on the road yesterday. There's another one.
That's one thing you and I have talked about doing a little bit of, but here it just seems like it would be pretty difficult because it's just pairs of them here and there. You don't get the big flocks of them like you would in an open.
And I think if we decided we wanted to try it, we could plant. There's a couple of places we could plant, an acre of sunflowers,
Yeah.
and sunflowers would, grow like crazy around here. So I think we could make a dove patch pretty easily if we wanted to, which kind of sounds like fun now that I'm thinking about it. But
The one time we went with a couple buddies, Southwest Kansas, and from my experience, you have to see them coming from a long ways away,
yeah,
and I still couldn't hit them. So that might be the other tough part, being ready for them when they fly, and they're pretty fast little boogers.
but there are a fair number. I mean, the last
Oh yeah,
200 yards on the road here, we've seen a dozen of them
Yep.
nearly. So
Yep.
they're around. Yeah.
I'm actually really pleased with the I guess, diversity of wildlife we've had on the farm here lately. Nothing that you wouldn't expect, I guess, but we got quail numbers coming back. We've got turkey numbers, it looks like, kind of rebounding from recent years. Deer are probably holding steady.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, we have an idea kind of what's in the whole area, right, by driving around and looking and stuff, but a lot of times, you know, this time of the summer, we're like, well, we don't have any turkeys on the farm. Well, we found just by modifying a few fields so we actually have low grass or low food plot in there, that's where they're going to be this time of year, right? Turkeys don't like being in over their heads and stuff because they can't see. And
you know, and the other thing,
whatever, so
there's a group of doves. The other thing I've wondered about this summer that could have helped, I don't think it could have hurt them. A lot of those big trees that flew down piled up, and now they're sticking up 8-10 feet above the ground. Well, that's really nice for those young birds to hop up and get out of danger. I think that could probably help too.
Yes, now we have, you know, you have a low, the young ones aren't going to be flying up in the big roosty trees. Now they got some low stuff they can get on there off the ground. So it'll be interesting. It's funny, we're lamenting about all these trees getting knocked down, whereas, you know, our goal for years has been cut as many trees in the off season as we can, but I guess the difference being that the storms aren't terribly selective.
Yeah, it didn't take enough of the cedars out.
Right. Although I was amazed how
hills,
many of those that knocked out around that one stand.
Yeah,
But they were mostly
on the hillside.
and kind of deadish anyhow.
So you got a new bow.
I did get a new bow. Actually, this is the first new bow that I have bought since my very first one.
Your first one was
20 years ago.
your first one wasn't the PSE, was it? Or was it?
So, no, my very first one it was a Walmart Golden Eagle special, and it lasted about a couple of months before one of the limbs split on it, and actually returned it back to Walmart and got a PSE, again, another Walmart special with actual cables. It was the Fitzgerald Special.
Oh yeah.
It was all right. Never actually shot a deer with it, but hunted with it for a long time and ruined a lot of aluminum arrows with it. But it was fun. You know, you start somewhere, and that's
nothing wrong with Walmart bows.
Right. Well, and back in so this would have been very early 2000s, I guess. I'd have to look see when that actually was. I'm sure it was year 2000 or 2000.
Yeah, that's what I would say too.
One-ish. And, you know, bow hunting was still pretty popular at that point, but not to the point where in our area there was actually an archery shop or anything.
Right.
So Walmart was pretty much the source for anything. I suppose there was one in Manhattan at that point, but, you know, we didn't, when you're in high school, you don't have any way of getting anywhere, and you could mail order stuff, but, you know, that was still in the days prior to internet, so you have to send off the order to, well, I guess internet being easily accessible to us, order stuff sight unseen.
It would be just as quick to mail it in than to let the dial up.
Yeah. Oh man, so not to sidetrack too much, but I was reminiscing the other day about, you know, we were both born in the 80s and kind of grew up in the 90s and getting the giant Cabela's and Bass Pro catalogs, and, you know, not having any money or whatever. You dream about all the...
See some up on the
right, stop and
right track there.
Get the binos thrown up again here. Readjust my head. There's 3 with no ant tellers that I can see. Boy, they look pretty though. And it wasn't too often, but every once in a while I decide, well, there's something we want from the catalog, so you save up your lawn mowing cash and convince mom or dad to write you a check and put it in a little envelope and send it off, having no idea when something would show up, and that was always the coolest thing. Like 3 weeks later, you'd get a package in the mail, and so
I still like going through the physical catalogs with, well, usually it's just Cabela's or Bass Pro. Now they're one and the same almost, but when you're going through online, I go straight to what I'm thinking of in my mind, and I'm not actually browsing much. Whereas in the catalog, it's nice to flip through and look at the selections and circle what you think you want. And
I kind of do too. My so maybe let me know if I'm off on my observation with this. Even with the bigger, like master catalogs, it seems like the selection of items shown in there is just a sprinkling of the representative, and it's almost like it's geared toward, okay, we're going to catch your eye. Now you have to go online to actually find the specific
that's probably true
thing you want. Whereas it used to be, it was like a comprehensive book of every single
every item number with size, all that.
Every item, and I remember particularly like in the fishing catalogs, they would have, you look at map spinners or the Rapala lures.
Every single color.
Every single color, every single pattern, and it was so cool. I mean, you weren't just looking at a crick hopper. You could see all 8 colors of crick hoppers they made, and that was pretty neat. Now you look and there's, one model, and you have to go do a little digging to find out. So I'd really like to, I'm sure they're all gone, but try to find some of the old catalogs that had a bunch of that in there. But
I remember going through those and you're thinking, man, when I grow up, I'm gonna get one of each of these in every color, and now you gotta buy milk and bread and shoes for the kids and all that.
Right, and all the stuff that I do have one of each of, I'm like, I can't remember the last time I used any of that.
Yeah. Oh well.
But back to the bow thing, like, that one. So my first 2 were Walmarts. I was with them for quite a while. The next one I bought was in college. I bought a used Bear. And it was a like whitetail. No, not Whitetail Legends. Anyway, there was some special edition one. Now it'll come to me after a little bit. I bought it on eBay and hunted with it for quite a few years. And then I bought another used Bear off of Craigslist from some guy out of the trunk of his car in Kansas City. And that was...
We're thankful you're still alive.
Yeah, that was a 2012 model bow, so it was 10 years old now. And I think it was a year old when I bought it from him. He was a nice guy and got a decent price on it. So, so I finally decided, well, the one I was shooting, there's really nothing wrong with it. I'm definitely not one of the guys that has to have a new model every year, and thankfully so. If I, hunted a lot more with them than I did, maybe I'd get that urge, but I don't know. It flings arrows just fine, but it was getting to the point where it needed new cable stops for the dampeners, and it really needed a new string, and I kind of started pricing all that stuff, and well, it was almost halfway to the price of a new mid-tier bow that I was kind of looking at. So, well, if I buy a new bow once every 10 years, I'll probably be all right. So I got another Bear. No particular reason other than I've had real good luck with them, and they seem to make pretty decent stuff. So I have noticed that bow technology is a lot different than it was 10 years ago, and a 70-pound bow with a 80% let off is a lot different than a 70-pound bow with a 65% let off, and they're pretty snappy now.
I agree with the point that you probably don't need a new bow every year, although if that's your jam, go for it, and if you can float that. I've only had 2. Like you, the first one I had, it was a Bear, some weird model from Walmart, and worked fine. And then was doing some work for a guy, some building a patio, and he said, well, hey, I have this bow that I'm not going to use, and it's only a couple of years old. I'll trade you some of the work for that. I thought, well, that's fine. And so that was a couple of years old Bowtech Admiral, and that's what I've still used to this day. And I actually wanted to buy a new one last year because I wanted to upgrade the sight and rest and do some stuff, put some money into it, and well, maybe it's just time to get a new bow. And the one I had my eye on at our local bow shop, it actually sold like days before I could go actually look at it and shoot it, which was fine. So I had the guy there check it out, my old one. He said, no, it's fine if we just restring it and put new cables and tune it up. It's in fine shape, so that's what we did. So maybe a couple more years out of it. But, you know, when we started, our base reference for bows was Dad's old wood Browning compound with a
laminated limbs.
36-inch draw length, and so all of these things were light years ahead of that old bow.
The funny thing about that was forever growing up, being able to draw that bow was like some major feat of strength, right?
Yep.
And I don't know, it's 60 pounds or something.
Yeah, I don't even know what it is.
But the draw length is crazy long and very little let off. So, you know, drawing it now is no challenge, but being able to hold it for more than like 10 seconds, that's the real feat of strength. Buying the new and the used and stuff, if there is absolutely nothing wrong with buying used bows if you're a little careful what you look at, and if you buy a major manufacturer one, all of them have warranties behind them.
Yep.
And so as long as you're not buying one that's, you know, I'd probably have a hard time warranting my 10-year-old bow, but you know, if it's last year's model or 2 years model, even if something does go wrong with it, you're going to save a pile of money buying it, and it will likely be able to be warranted. They take care of stuff, so don't be afraid of that. And then also, you know, there are a lot of people that do buy new stuff every year. Cool, if that's your jam. Find some. If you're looking to get rid of your old one, find a kid that needs it and get them a good deal on it. They'll remember it for sure.
Sometimes that's part of like your enjoyment of the process.
Yeah.
Like if you're a real gear junkie and that's what really gets you excited. I'm not quite that way. And I go back when I'm looking at really any gear that I'm looking at. Well, we grew up in the era where we were into dirt bikes and four-wheelers and stuff, and Travis Pastrana was winning all the X Games, and any motocross race that he didn't crash out of, he won. And kind of his point then was he could win on any age of bike. It was down to skill. So I kind of remind myself of that. Okay, do I need this piece of gear because I think it'll make me better, or do I just personally need to work on my skill level? And if it's my skill, then I just don't worry about buying the gear. If I have a reason for buying the gear, wear and tear, or you know, whatever the case might be, then that's a good idea. But whatever gets you excited. I almost bought a brand new Matthews when we were in college. We were at, my buddy Nick probably remembers this. We used to go to the range. He'd kind of started out shooting bows with us, and we'd go to the range, I think it was like every Tuesday night, and we would shoot. We had the pass code to get in, and we would shoot forever. And one day we were there during shop hours, and so we were kind of looking at the bows and stuff. And I pulled this brand new Matthews off the rack. And what's the number one thing you do not do with a bow? Dry fire it. So, but anyway, we'd been shooting bows for years by this point, and I knew that. And they didn't have the string tied up like they sometimes do. Sometimes they have the zip tie around it. And so I draw this thing back just to see what it feels like. And yeah, it's awesome because it's a tremendous amount of let off. Comfortable. I go to slowly let it down, and the top cam, or the axle, I guess, was bent or cockeyed, and that thing sprung off and blew apart. And the shop owner whipped around. Oh man, he was mad. And he gave me the business, and I told him, I said, I swear I did not dry fire this bow. I know what I'm doing. Wrote my information down on a card, and handed it to him. I said, hey, I'll cover this, whatever, just I'll make it right. And I never heard back from him, and we laid low from the archery range for a little while, but we wanted to go practice some more. We showed up, and it was probably a month and a half later or something. We were shooting, and another guy was in there, and this was after hours. He's like, yeah, I just picked up this bow cheap in the shop. I had some warranty work done on it or something. It's like, I think I recognize that. I didn't tell him what had happened. But since then, I've just been careful about what I look at off the rack. And it's a good idea probably for those shop owners to keep that tied up so you can't draw them. Because accidents can't happen, and that surely was an accident. But.
Yeah. Well, and on a couple of things, I don't know, nobody asked my opinion, but generally, universal truth is maybe not when you're first getting into it, but once you're committed to it, buy the best that you can afford, because eventually, you're going to keep growing with it. And the one that I particularly think of a lot is binoculars or optics. Up until, I don't know, last handful of years, again, had Walmart special cheapest binoculars I could find, which, okay, you can kind of see stuff through, but boy, there is a heck of a difference between a $50 pair of binoculars and a $200 or $300 pair of binoculars. And if that means, just hanging on another year until you can justify the more expensive ones, do it instead of buying just progressively a little bit higher end cheap varieties, because there's a big difference in that. And then, hey, there's an owl in that tree right there.
Oh, sweet.
Even like the mid-tier gear now is on par or better than the absolute best stuff of 5 years ago or so. So you don't feel like you have to get into the absolute top end of stuff, because even the mid-tier stuff is pretty darn good now. And I noticed that so my new bow now is kind of a mid-tier offering, and it's way better than the last one I had, which was one of their top of the line ones 10 years ago. So much faster and smoother and quieter and everything. And so just stuff is progressing quickly.